The African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas as varied as politics, sports, aviation, literature, and religion. We will explore how African Americans have succeeded in areas where they'd been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown, Jr., and with us today is Phil Banks, Jr., the president of the 100 Black Men. Glad to have you with us today, Phil.
Good morning, Dr. Brown. How are you?
Now, the 100 Black Men have been around since 1963. Tell us a little something about the funding of the organization, the founding of the organization, and the things that it has accomplished in these many, many years.
Yeah. Well, as you just said, the organization started over 46 years ago, and it was a coming together of that time by men of the African American community to work in their community. As you know, you've been a very big part of that community. It basically started out as an organization that addressed public policy. And as we moved along under your tenure as president, they start to focus on education. And since you've done that, we've enhanced what we do in education. We've just founded 2 schools here in the city of New York, the Eagle Academy for Young Men. We have one in the South Bronx and we have one in Brooklyn. As you may or may not know, Dr. Brown, there's 7 communities here in the city of New York that populate over 70% of the New York State prison population. And we in the 100 Black Men has committed to putting a school in each one of those particular areas.
As a former police official, maybe a present police official, you know very much about the nexus between community service and crime and delinquency and so on. What has been your experience about the reasons why so many of our young people get into trouble?
I find there's various things, Doctor. Lack of resources in our community, lack of understanding by a lot of our young men, particularly those who become parents. I don't believe there's anything really wrong in our community that men of our community standing up couldn't address. And that was one of the ideas of creating the 100 Black Men. It's just, and besides lack of resources.
Well, how does lack of resources contribute to the development of criminal and unsatisfactory behavior among our youth?
Well, let me just say this. The Eagle Academy that I just talked to you about is a public school. But the 100 Black Men has founded that school, and we raise additional resources. The graduation rate for African Americans in this high school in this city is 30%, 31%. We have brought resources to the school. We have robotics team. We have children going to, young men going to school Saturdays, and we also keep them in school till 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. But it's because of those resources, our first graduating class, we had them graduating at a rate of 72, 73%. Our second graduating class, they up to 85%. So what I'm saying is that if we apply resources to our educational system, I think young men will have a different way, and they'll have an understanding between a lot of right and wrong criminal activity.
Well, that's true, but basically it's the economic situation in the community that doesn't provide jobs and doesn't provide support for families that leads to this. Now, true, the 100 Black Men are doing a great job with things like the Eagle Academy, but in the broader society, you've been in law enforcement. What has been the nexus, the relationship between law enforcement and enforcement in terms of helping young Black men and helping men of other backgrounds to do the right thing? What has been the role of the police department, for example?
Well, you know, the police department is an enforcement agency, but in New York City Police Department, they do a lot of social work also. They have one of the largest community relations team. I myself used to work in community relations for many years there. But when you bring up the point that the economic part of what's happening in our community, plays a very big part of that. That's what I mean, lack of resources in the community, you know, when they don't have the jobs. I believe it all starts with education, though, Doctor, because when a young man doesn't have the proper education, he's not going to get the proper job.
But what do you say when you have a 10% unemployment rate and you have a PhD?
Well, at least those people with the PhD know how to critically think and solve and wait or know what to do.
Of course, you're right, Phil. It does start with jobs, and education is a good part of that.
We believe it's key.
But there is a factor in the economy, and it's a problem that it's not just the black community, everybody has to face, because of the fact that the way in which the economy is structured, we've lost jobs overseas, automation has come in, and that's where education comes in to help people to be prepared for the new jobs.
Right. But you see, the larger community is suffering from the impact of the recession, but there's been a recession in the black community for a prolonged period of time.
Since 1865, when slavery ended.
And so,
right.
So they're reacting to that. Of course, if this recession lasts for the next 15 or 20 years, I'd say you'd have a lot of good people doing things that they may not ordinarily do.
That's exactly right.
You know.
Now tell us about the Eagle Academy. Now, you say it's a public school, unlike a charter school, which gets only 80% of the basic funding. But the Eagle Academy is a public school sponsored and supported by the 100 Black Men. Now, how does that work?
Well, as I say, they used to have high schools, and they had high schools with 3,000 and 4,000 members at high school, and they came to the conclusion that that might not work. So they started the city of New York started what they call theme schools, and they encouraged community groups to open these schools or found these schools. 100 Black Men has done that.
By found them, you mean work with the Department of Education to organize the school?
To organize the school and work with the community. Of course, you have to get their permission to be in that particular community where we open, and to get community help, which we do.
Well, why did you start in the Bronx?
Because it's one of the 7 areas that I spoke about earlier. And of course, we worked with the community up there, and they were willing to work with us. So we began up there, and I think we was working very closely with Adolfo Carrion as the borough president at that particular time. So we started there. But the uniqueness of our school, Dr. Brown, is that we try to put mentors with these young men. We believe they'll be what they see. So we try to put a successful image with these young men, and that's how we work.
Tell us how that works. Mentoring is obviously very important, but how do you do that?
Well, when we first started the school, we were doing one-on-one mentoring. We put a successful man with each one of the youngsters, and we got a lot out of that. But now that we're opening these additional schools, now our recruitment for mentors have to increase. So we don't have enough mentors at this point to do one-on-one anymore. So we do what we call group mentoring. We put about 4 mentors with a group of 12 students. And what we do is we relate to these students. And one of the other good things about that, oftentimes we find these students are good students, but oftentimes if the off-site, out of the school system, problems interfere with their learning process. So we try to at least help problem solve with what may be going on home. You might have a young man there who has a bigger brother who's a drug addict in the house, or he might have problems with his family. And so we try to give them as much or facilitate what we're doing with them, with their problems.
Now, what does it take to be a mentor?
It takes commitment and integrity. We're very careful on the people who we put with these young men. But you have to be committed to your community and committed to what's happening with these young men in our community. And what we do, we give them training, but we have them just to show themselves to these young men, work with them, talk to them about their interests and how they can be successful at what they're doing. Most of us have gone that same way ourselves, in the same path that these young men are doing. And we try to encourage them to stay focused on what they're doing.
Now, do you focus on their schoolwork or their extracurricular or their family?
We focus on their schoolwork and their character.
Now, do you do tutoring too with this, or is tutoring a different part of the program?
Tutoring is a different part of the program, and we have tutors. We're expanding that, but we have made partnership with Scholastic. I'm sure you might be familiar with one of the largest educational content providers in the country. They have their president has joined our organization, and he has committed to working with our educational program and provide tutors. As a matter of fact, this past Friday, They equipped our entire library at our Ocean Hill School, $28,000 worth of books. And they're also going to have their employees help us mentor as well as tutor some of our students.
Now, the tutoring occurs after school or during school?
Well, a lot of it occurs after school. Like I said, they don't get out of school at 3 o'clock. We keep these kids in school till 6 o'clock in the evening.
How do you manage to do that, given that the regular school days usually 9 to 3?
Well, you know, we have to raise money, and that's what we are doing. We also keep the teachers in school for a couple of extra hours.
But they get paid for that, I
Yeah,
assume.
but the city don't pay them for that. We raise money. We figure who's the best to help these kids with their homeworks, but the teachers. So part of our fundraising effort goes towards paying these teachers that extra salary to do a lot of the tutoring and work with them on their homeworks. You know?
Now, if someone is watching this show and wants to be a mentor, who do they contact?
They can contact my office. They can contact my email address.
What is your office number?
212-777-7070. And my email address is pbanks, OHBM, 100 Black Men, NY @.org, excuse me.
Okay, we'll put that on the screen so that people will be able to see that. Now, do the mentors all have to be college graduates, or could they be people in the community who have other kind of skills?
They don't have to be college graduates. All we ask them to be men of integrity, men who has...
How do you know they have integrity?
Well, we do a background check.
Okay.
You know, it's just not a matter of them saying they want to be. You know, it's a fingerprinting process that they go through. And so we have we check them. We recruit, we vet, as well as we train.
And what is the nature of the training?
Well, I'm not part of that training activity.
Sure.
But no, we give them at least 4 to 6 hours worth of training, how to act with the boys, what they can and cannot do with the boys, where they can take them and where they can't take them.
That's a good point, because sometimes mentors work off-site, take kids to ball games and shows and so on.
And we do that also.
What are the guidelines for doing that?
Well, you know, they're not to be really going anywhere with these kids without, first of all, their parents knowing, or with what we call our mentoring coordinator. We must know where they are and what they're doing at all times. We don't want off-site things and just the two of them are involved and know anything about it. As I said, that may have been somewhat of a problem when we had the one-on-one mentoring. Now we're doing group mentoring, and we coordinate with the principal and with the teachers in the school. And we have open dialogue with the teachers so we know what their grades are and how we can help.
Now, I assume that some of these extracurricular activities involve music, involve drama, involve sports, and maybe even visits to the New York City Stock Exchange.
Yes, they do. They're some of our partners. That's one of the uniqueness of what we do. We're getting a lot of corporations involved with what we're doing. We have what we call a Saturday Institute. I indicated the kids go to school on Saturday. And we have, for instance, people like Empire Blue Cross coming in to speak to them about their health, how not to become obese at 14 and 15 years old. We have financial institutions coming in. Matter of fact, we have at our Bronx School a financial institution coming in and teaching them how to become entrepreneurs and how to stay on top of their finances, as well as other subjects. But you brought up music. We have what they call a trumpet academy. So we teach them music, which the public school don't do, as well as guitars and trumpets. So we're moving it, and we're doing that through partnerships that we have with organizations like Chase Manhattan and a few others.
Now, on the Saturday program, what actually happens on the Saturday program?
Well, we have robotics team there. And they work on their robotics. We have public debate teams. They work with that. We have someone like yourself, or public figures, that come in before the day is over to speak to them, to show that, like I said, successful image, and let them know that they have a future and that they have support and people who love them and willing to help them move forward. But that's what our Saturday, we call it our Saturday Institute.
Is that required? Do all the students have to participate?
Yes, it's required. You know, if we have someone who's ducking out, of course we address it just as if they're not showing up in school.
How many students are in, let's say, the Bronx School?
Right now we have 420. We're presently sharing, we're presently sharing a building with another school called the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. But we're having a $50 million building that's going to be completed this April. And it's going to be our flagship school that we're going to start. We're going to stand alone for ourselves.
Now, what grades will you be covering?
Well, the school that we started in the Bronx, Doctor, started at the 9th grade. It was 9 through 12. But our experience with that indicated that we had to start much lower, because by the time they become in the 9th grade, they're pretty much set in their ways. When we open our school, the new building, we're going to add a 6th grade level, and then we're going to each year.
6, 7, 8,
9, straight 6 through 12.
Middle school.
Right. Now, the school that we have in Brooklyn, it started at the 6th grade. Now, we're in our 2nd year, so it's 6 and 7. And each year we're going to add a grade until we get a full 6 through 12.
Now, your teachers, they are Board of Education certified teachers.
Yes.
How do you recruit the teachers?
Well, we pretty much leave that to our principal. We recruit the principal. The chief thing that we have to do here, we must get the right leader. Without the proper leader of the school, it won't work. So we put a lot of effort into the first principal we did a nationwide search, just to realize that we had him right here now, in our midst.
The principal is Phil Banks Jr. Right?
It's David Banks. He's my oldest son.
David Banks, yeah, right.
You're
Phil Banks Jr., right.
And I have a son, Phil Banks. He's the chief of police, Manhattan North. I don't know if I mentioned that to you. But we pick the principal very carefully, and then we leave him the leeway to pick the teachers. Now, what we do a teacher development over the course of the summer. It's a 2-week course that each teacher that come into school have to go through. And so they are on the same page with us in the 100. They're on the same page with what we're doing in the school. And so they become familiar with our organization, what we're doing, and what we're looking for them to do in the school.
Now, with it being a high school, that means that some of the teachers are science teachers, some are English teachers, some are language teachers, some are social science teachers.
Math teachers, right. The 2 principals they have, both were math teachers. That's how that's their background.
Now, does that mean that the schools are very strong in math?
That they're going to be strong. We're still teaching them now. You know, we hope to be at a certain level. You know, like I said, we had our first graduating class. We had our 2nd graduating class this June, and we are noticing each year we're getting the students making better and better students. And as I said, the first year we graduated 72%. The next year we graduated 86%, I believe that was. And this upcoming year we're looking to do even better than that.
Now, tell us about how you relate to the parents. Now, one thing we didn't mention, this school is for young men only.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Single gender, the first single gender all-boys school in the city of New York in over 30 years.
Well, how do you defend having a school that excludes women?
Well, you know, Doctor, the problem that we're having with boys throughout our country, and particularly African American boys and Hispanic boys, you know, in terms of their graduation rate, we thought that was our niche and that's something that we should focus on. We're not excluding women, you know, girls from our help in the community. But as far as education go, we thought if we had a single gender school and we focus on leadership and integrity, if we get the boys right, I think the girls will follow.
Well, I think there are a couple of all-girls schools now being developed.
Yes.
Each one has its own philosophy. I guess with the African-American schools for men, the idea is that men with role models become stronger people without the distractions of having the girls around.
Absolutely.
On the standpoint of the all-girls schools, that girls get an opportunity to achieve without having to compete with
the boys.
But that's not really life. Life is life that's where
commingling.
Men and women, black and white, wiggle together. So how do you deal with those social issues?
We find, you know, we have not found. We found in the first couple of years, the young men had a little problem with that. But by the time they graduated, they thought that was the best thing that could have happened to them. There can be some distraction, but we need them to realize the importance of education so that when they do come out of school, they can be good partners with the young ladies. One of the problems we have, and because of the lack of graduation rates, is a lot of our young ladies whose graduation rates are much higher really don't have the partners to partner with, you know, or they'll partner with someone that causes them a lot of problems at some other end. So we realize that there's the crisis in our community, and somebody needs to stand up and ring the bell on that crisis. And our young men are not making it. As I said, 7 communities here in New York City populate 70% of the prison population. You know, so that means our young men who are not being educated, they're then moving on into prison because they don't have those jobs. And
well, it's not just educated in terms of the cognitive things, English and math and so on. It has to do with attitudes. What do you do to help these young men get more positive attitudes to the way in which they treat African American and other women?
Well, that's why we try to be, their mentors, try to be role models for them. We try to show them in our own, the way we conduct ourselves, on how they should be conducting others. And I think we're getting some success in that.
Well, part of your program, I think, is to have uniforms where the young men dress. What do they wear?
They wear, during the week, they wear a blue shirt, dark pants, and a tie. And the tie has it's called an eagle tie, and it has an eagle on it. Their first year, they get a certain color. The freshman year, you know, so it's color coordinated with their tie. And you know the senior by the color of his tie. And the seniors also get a blazer that we supply to them. But they're normal, on the Friday, they're allowed to come in a khaki pants and an open collar shirt with an eagle on their breasts, as well as on Saturday. They wear that same dress.
Now, do you have a drama group within the school? Do they actually put on plays and things like that?
Well, not at this point. That's something we're looking to start. But what we do have is a chef, a cooking class. You know, we have the chef. We have, like I said, the public debate. We have the robotics team. We have a basketball team. And they're doing quite well. I think last year, the year before, they won second in the state championship. You know, and so we have and then we have the music class that we do for them. But we haven't gotten around to drama just yet. We still got to raise a little bit more money for that.
All right, let's talk about another part of the 100 Black Men's program, health care and health education, and improving the health of African American men and women all over the country. What are you doing in healthcare?
Well, as I said, one of the things we do, we have something we call for the Future, and that's we concentrate on education, mentoring, health and wellness, and economic development. These past 6 or 7 years, our big focus has been around this education, getting this Eagle School started. But we're working very closely with the Ralph Lauren Cancer Center, as well as Mount Sinai Hospital, as well as St. Luke's Hospital. But what we are doing is we having public discussions and signing people up to go in to have their cancer checked. We're focusing on obesity, and we also have health people come into our schools. You talked about parents. We have one of the highest parent participation rate in the city. And then we bring these kind of services into our schools when we have our parent meetings, you understand, to give the same kind of information out to them.
So you have cancer screening for prostate and breast cancer, I would assume.
Right.
And you also are working on obesity. Now, what do you do with obesity? Put an X beside McDonald's, or how are you dealing with that?
Well, you know, it's a matter of giving them, letting them know, you know,
that diet is related to obesity, exercise is related to obesity.
Exercise and diet is related to obesity, and that you just can't keep eating McDonald's. And we give them this kind of McDonald's, not just McDonald's, but other fast food places, sodas, certain kinds of sodas and whatnot that they drink. But we try to make that make them aware and bring their awareness up, you know. And because oftentimes the obese kid is always ridiculed in school or something to that effect. So when we bring these kind of programs to the school, he's listening. You know, and we haven't been able to measure just how far we've gotten with this at this point, but we are bringing them that kind of information.
A more serious consequence of obesity is hypertension and diabetes.
Yes.
Are you doing anything with hypertension and diabetes screening?
Not at this point, although that's something we're looking to add as we go. We're bringing some of the doctors from St. Luke's Hospital, Mount Sinai Hospital, as well as the Ralph Lauren Center. And we're looking to work with them so they can put the kind of health program together that we think that will be helpful to our community. And we are still in the negotiated discussions on that.
And I assume in some of your monthly meetings, you do have some of those meetings focused specifically on health issues.
Yes, we do. Health issues, education issues, public policy.
But particularly health, I'm talking about health, because
okay.
basically you're doing a good job in education. But one of the things we need to do, because of the high rate of diabetes and hypertension, obesity, and prostate cancer in our community, organizations like the 100 Black Men ought to be taking a lead in that.
And we're looking to do that, and we're moving in that direction, Doctor, believe me. That's why I say we're coordinating various health facilities around to see how they can help us or we can help them move forward. But we're working on that. The last few years, our concentration has been on education, but now we're looking to concentrate heavily in health.
Okay, today on African American Legends, we've been talking with Phil Banks, the president of the 100 Black Men, and focusing on their efforts in education, healthcare, and economic development. Glad to have you with us today, Phil.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Appreciate it.